exposing the power plays in Middle East peace talks. Did you know a single phone call from Erdoğan could ground an entire summit? In the world of international diplomacy, sometimes it's not the official speeches or the grand gestures that change the course of history, but a behind-the-scenes warning, a private conversation, or a leader's sudden refusal to play along. The stakes are always high, and the players are always watching each other's moves, ready to act or react at a moment's notice. In this high-stakes arena, every word, every gesture, and every phone call can have consequences that ripple far beyond the negotiating table. The Middle East, with its tangled web of alliances and rivalries, is a place where the unexpected is always lurking just beneath the surface, and where the ambitions of world leaders can be upended in an instant by a single, decisive act. Let's break down how Trump's big Gaza move got shut down, fast. This wasn't just another headline, this was a high-wire act that unraveled in real time, with the world's cameras rolling and every leader's reputation on the line. Trump, never one to shy away from the spotlight, saw an opportunity to make a splash on the world stage. But the Middle East is a place where even the boldest plans can fall apart in seconds. The region's history is littered with failed peace initiatives, last-minute walkouts, and dramatic reversals. And this latest episode was no exception. For Trump, the Gaza summit was supposed to be a moment of triumph, a chance to showcase his deal-making prowess and perhaps even secure a legacy-defining achievement. But as the events unfolded, it became clear that the forces at play were far more complex and unpredictable than any one leader could control. So here's the scoop. Trump tried to pull off another signature move, inviting Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu to a high-stakes Gaza summit in Egypt. The plan was classic Trump: bring together the key players, grab the headlines, and maybe, just maybe, broker a deal that would go down in history. The invitation was sent, the venue was set, and the world's attention was fixed on what could be a turning point for the region. The anticipation was palpable, with journalists, analysts, and diplomats all speculating about what might happen if these powerful figures actually sat down at the same table. For a brief moment, it seemed as if the impossible might be within reach, a breakthrough that could change the course of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and reshape the political landscape of the Middle East. The idea? A historic photo op, maybe even a peace breakthrough. Imagine the images, leaders shaking hands, signing agreements, and smiling for the cameras. For Trump, it was a chance to cement his legacy as a deal maker, and for the region, a glimmer of hope that decades of conflict might finally give way to dialogue. The symbolism of such a gathering would have been powerful, a visual testament to the possibility of reconciliation, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable differences. But as anyone familiar with the region knows, appearances can be deceiving, and the path to peace is rarely straightforward. Behind the scenes, tension simmered, and the prospect of a genuine breakthrough was always shadowed by the realities of deep-seated mistrust and competing interests. But in the Middle East, nothing's ever simple. Every handshake is loaded with history, every meeting shadowed by old rivalries and new suspicions. The region's politics are a maze of alliances, grudges, and shifting loyalties, where even the best-laid plans can be upended by a single objection. The ghosts of past negotiations haunt every new initiative, and the memories of broken promises and failed agreements are never far from the surface. In this environment, trust is a rare commodity, and every participant is acutely aware that today's ally could become tomorrow's adversary. The stakes are not just political, but deeply personal, with leaders constantly weighing the risks to their own reputations and the potential fallout for their countries. Enter Turkish President Erdoğan, flying in with a warning sharper than his suit. If Netanyahu shows up, I'm not landing this plane. Erdoğan's message wasn't just a personal snub, it was a calculated move, signaling to his supporters and rivals alike that he wouldn't compromise on his principles, especially when it came to the Gaza conflict. Erdoğan has long positioned himself as a champion of the Palestinian cause, and his stance on Gaza is a cornerstone of his political identity. By drawing a red line at Netanyahu's participation, he was sending a clear message not only to the summit organizers, but to the entire Muslim world. Turkey would not legitimize what it sees as aggression against Palestinians by sharing a stage with the Israeli leader. This was more than just diplomatic theater. It was a high-stakes gamble with real consequences for regional alliances and Erdoğan's own standing at home. Literally, his plane circled at Egypt until he got word Netanyahu was out. Why? For Erdoğan, being seen with Netanyahu, especially after calling Israel's Gaza actions genocide, would be political dynamite back home. The optics mattered. Appearing alongside Netanyahu could have sparked outrage among Erdoğan's base, threatened his standing in the Muslim world, and handed ammunition to his political opponents. In Turkey, where public opinion is fiercely pro-Palestinian, any perceived softening toward Israel is met with suspicion and anger. Erdoğan's maneuver was as much about domestic politics as it was about international diplomacy. He needed to show his supporters that he was willing to stand up to Israel, even if it meant risking a diplomatic incident. The image of his plane circling, refusing to land, became a symbol of defiance, a message that Turkey would not be pressured into compromising its principles for the sake of a photo op. Plus, other Arab leaders threatened to bail if Netanyahu attended, making it clear that his presence would turn the summit into a diplomatic minefield. The risk wasn't just a failed meeting, it was a public embarrassment, a sign of division when unity was desperately needed. In a region where appearances matter as much as substance, the prospect of empty seats and walkouts was a nightmare scenario for the summit's organizers. The fragile coalition of Arab states, already under strain from years of conflict and shifting alliances, could easily have fractured under the pressure. For many of these leaders, attending a summit with Netanyahu would have been politically toxic, risking backlash at home and undermining their credibility with their own people. The threat of a mass walkout was a powerful bargaining chip, and it forced the organizers to reconsider their plans at the last minute. Meanwhile, Netanyahu's own coalition was ready to implode. Back in Israel, political tensions were already running high, and any misstep on the international stage could have triggered a crisis at home. The pressure was on from every direction. Netanyahu's government, a fragile alliance of right-wing and religious parties, was already facing criticism over its handling of the Gaza conflict. Any perceived concession or diplomatic blunder could have been seized upon by his rivals, both inside and outside the coalition. The Israeli public, deeply divided over the government's policies, was watching closely, and Netanyahu knew that his political survival depended on navigating these treacherous waters with extreme caution. The prospect of attending a summit where he might be publicly snubbed or isolated was a risk he could ill afford to take. Toss in an ICC arrest warrant, and the situation became even more volatile. With international legal threats looming, Netanyahu's participation was suddenly not just controversial, but potentially dangerous for everyone involved. The specter of international justice hung over the proceedings, adding another layer of complexity to an already fraught situation. For Netanyahu, the risk of arrest or legal action while traveling abroad was a real and present danger, and for the summit organizers, the possibility of a diplomatic incident involving the International Criminal Court was a nightmare scenario. The legal dimension of the conflict, often overlooked in the heat of political maneuvering, became a central factor in the decision-making process, forcing everyone to weigh the risks and rewards of going forward with the original plan. And suddenly, Trump's diplomatic spontaneity looked more like a diplomatic disaster. What started as a bold gambit was now a cautionary tale about the limits of showmanship in global politics. The world watched as the carefully constructed narrative of a breakthrough unraveled in real time, replaced by images of confusion, frustration, and missed opportunities. For Trump, the episode was a stark reminder that even the most charismatic leaders cannot bend the realities of international relations to their will. The art of the deal, it turned out, was no match for the entrenched interests and deep-seated animosities that define the Middle East. The failed summit became a symbol of the challenges facing anyone who tries to broker peace in a region where every move is fraught with risk. So, Netanyahu's invite, yanked at the last minute, the summit's guest list was rewritten, and the world watched as the drama played out in real time. The decision to withdraw the invitation was a dramatic reversal, but it was also a pragmatic one. Faced with the prospect of a summit marred by boycotts, walkouts, and legal complications, the organizers chose to cut their losses and move forward without one of the most controversial figures in the conflict. The empty chair at the table became a powerful symbol of the challenges facing peacemakers in the region, a reminder that sometimes the most important decisions are made not in public, but behind closed doors, in the heat of crisis. Trump's summit, still dramatic, but minus one very controversial guest. The empty chair at the table said it all. In the Middle East, even the most powerful leaders can find themselves sidelined by forces beyond their control. The spectacle of a summit, proceeding without one of its key players, was a vivid illustration of the unpredictability of international diplomacy. For Trump, it was a humbling moment, a reminder that even the most carefully orchestrated events can be derailed by the actions of others. For the region, it was yet another chapter in the long and often frustrating search for peace, marked by missed opportunities and dashed hopes. Because in the Middle East, diplomacy isn't chess. It's a tug-of-war, and sometimes nobody wants to let go. Every negotiation is a test of strength, patience, and nerve, with each side pulling for their own interests, and the outcome never guaranteed. The region's history is a testament to the difficulty of finding common ground, with each new initiative facing obstacles that seem insurmountable. The Gaza summit was just the latest example of how quickly things can change, and how even the most promising opportunities can slip away in the face of entrenched opposition. Yet, despite the setbacks, the search for peace continues, driven by the hope that one day, the tug-of-war will give way to genuine dialogue and understanding. So what do you think? Should Netanyahu be at the table for future peace talks? Drop your take in the comments. In a region where every move is scrutinized and every decision can have ripple effects across the globe, your opinion matters more than ever. Let's keep the conversation going, because the story of Middle East peace is far from over. As we watch these events unfold, it's clear that the path to peace is anything but straightforward. The challenges are immense, the stakes are high, and the players are as determined as ever to protect their interests. But history has shown that even in the darkest moments, there is always the possibility of change. Your voice, your perspective, and your engagement are part of the ongoing dialogue that shapes the future of this region. So, stay tuned, stay informed, and let's continue to hope and work for a day when the headlines are about breakthroughs, not breakdowns.